Hello, and welcome back to Spiritual Astrology. So, today I have a video for you that's not necessarily focused on astrology. It is, I'm going to use astrological terms because I come from that space. So basically, when I was 5 years old, I got into astrology. I got my first book at 8 years old, and from then onward, I used astrology kind of as a gateway. It's my basis of understanding. So in this video, I'll explain how we all have a way of understanding the world and how perception is everything. So practically, people look at the world in a different way. And we get through life in a practical means, and we all have a way of dealing with practical reality. And you can look at your birth chart and see how you unconsciously process everything, which is the foundation of our consciousness, and how you go through practical life and how you deal with, things that we need in a practical sense, like money, job, career, day-to-day living, time, and then how in spiritual reality, in esoteric terms, these concepts are a perception. And basically how our conscious reality is kind of floating on top of our unconscious reality that was created. So there's different terms in spiritual circles and spiritual esoteric studies. The terms that I'm going to use right now are basically unconscious reality. So certain terms are consciousness, unconsciousness, matter, and pattern. So basically, everyone is created by the dual nature. So our reality now in the physical world is of dual nature. And this is an illusion. So everything's separated into twos, and this is how we deal with reality. It's how we see both sides of the picture, because the reason that we are in physical bodies is to observe, experience, and reflect, and you can't do that when everything is one. So the reason that we have two parents each, a mother and a father, everything's separated into a masculine and a feminine energy. And you can kind of go deeper into this when you look into the sacred masculine and the sacred feminine. So the feminine rules over matter. So this is when you ask someone, what's the matter? Matter is material things. It's reality. It's form. But form doesn't take a form. It doesn't take specific structure until pattern comes along. So that's where father comes in. So the mother brings in physical things, and it brings in emotion and touch and sensation and just physical form. But the father brings in the pattern. So the pattern creates, eyes to up here, a nose down here, and a mouth down here in our physical form. So this is what, your parents or the sacred feminine and the sacred masculine bring into reality. So the feminine is less about time. It's less about organization. It's less about intellect. It's less about judgment. It is more about feeling, sensation, and matter. So when you ask someone what's the matter, you're going to have to, ultimately they're asking, how are you feeling? What is the real thing underneath the pattern? So you may explain in a logical, rational way, maybe, in an air way, according to astrology, or earth. So earth and air tend to be more masculine in this sense because they're less feeling. So feeling is very much, intuition, psychic sense, emotions, sensitivity are more related to the fire and water elements. So water and earth are feminine because they are less involved in the instincts, intellect, so those in things, than in the emotions and emanations. So the earth signs are focused on being introverted but dealing with it in a material way. So earth signs really live for sensation, what something tastes like. They will use time to gain these things because they will be using the concept of the air. So every element uses the element ahead of it. So earth signs sadly have to use air and elevate air in order to gain what they view as important. So earth signs do enjoy physical sensations. They enjoy working hard in time to gain taste, smell, sight, and sound. And they won't enjoy it unless there's conditions. So earth signs tend to have conditions. And this is a symbolic of the physical body. Basically, the physical body is, in the physical world, we tend to make judgments. These judgments create a reality. And in the spiritual understanding, and with the sacred feminine coming to light right now in the world, we're starting to realize that nothing exists outside of our mind, nothing exists outside of our judgment, because without judgment, nothing matters. Imagine you didn't have any thoughts or consciousness, and you got out of your body without thoughts and consciousness. Sure, maybe physical reality would exist, but there would be no reason for it to exist. You would just basically see things. You would see my face. You would see this couch I'm sitting on. But you would have no judgment of it. You would have no thinking of it. So it doesn't exist. Because things can only exist if there are concepts of it. Which, is symbolic of why everything is empty. So in spiritual circles, in Buddhism, in Jainism, in a lot of religions, the Sikh religion, and even in Christianity, basically there's a sense of emptiness and holiness that we're supposed to attain to realize that everything is one. And when everything is one, we start to find a sense of peace, because we come from a place of non-judgment, because non-judgment is just being. And this is very much getting back to settling in the water element, because water values fire, and fire is pure consciousness. It's pure intellect, or pure intuition. It's just knowing without time, because water and fire are beyond time. These are concepts that the lower vibrations of earth and air hold. So in the physical world, in order to be happy and healthy, we do need to have a strong sense of practical energy. And this is kind of symbolic of our 6th house. 6th house and 10th house are very much focused on getting by in the physical world, relating to our physical body, relating to why we need to shower, why we need to eat, why we need to breathe, why we need to make our minds up. So in true spiritual circles, you need to realize to not make judgment on these things. So that we may, in spiritual circles, value water or the 12th house or the 4th house because it's our past, it's meditation, it's finding our sense of inner balance. But we need to still maintain those while we live our daily lives. So in reality, the North Node and South Node are important factors in trying to find balance and trying to, let go of our past life and move towards our future life. But it's all about trying to find a sense of balance. So it's less about moving towards something and running away from something than it is in finding presence in the moment. So the whole concept is to raise our vibration. And people may think, oh, raising my vibration is going in a certain direction. That means I have to get away from where I am now and get towards a future ideal. This is the opposite way of thinking, because in our language, in the English language, in German, in most of our languages, we have a misconception that in order to get somewhere that is good, we need to get away from somewhere that we are now. And the whole concept of, raising our vibrations, finding spiritual attainment, enlightenment, the end-all be-all, being one with everything, atonement. Atonement means at one with God, is very symbolic and powerful because it's all about living in the moment and realizing that time is a construct of the mind, because outside of our interpretation, time doesn't exist, and if it does exist, it doesn't matter. So this is where matter comes in. Matter is what matters. In that sense, it is less about the construct of the physical world and the intellect, because the intellect tells us that I have two eyes that are above my nose, that are above my mouth, but physical whereabouts and physical location are not important in matter. They're important in pattern. So it's all about finding this balance between the spiritual life that we have within and, being introverted and kind of making sure that our mental state and that our judgments on ourselves and the world around us are loving towards, what matters. So this is the whole reason that we are spiritual people, that we're trying to aim for the spiritual life, is because we need to get away from the negative patterns that our language has created, our culture has created. Without doing these things, we won't ever be able to look within and analyze our minds. So this is why you need Virgo and Pisces in a spiritual world, Capricorn and Cancer, because you need to meditate and think, but yet be critical without judging yourself. So judgment can come in with different signs in the zodiac, such as Gemini and Sagittarius, because Gemini generally sits on the fence. It doesn't feel ashamed or guilty about having 3 opinions, 10 opinions on the same subject. A Sagittarius will say, but which one is right? What are we aiming for? So Sagittarius, although is aiming for a higher truth, is not yet, or isn't necessarily a spiritual sign because it's religious. Religion and spirituality are at odds with each other. And this, using astrology as a gateway to understanding this, is extremely powerful and important, because the 9th house and the 12th house are square generally. And this is how Jupiter is divided. So Jupiter can either bring us enlightenment and meditation by looking within, or we can look without and make judgment calls about our ethics and values. So ethics and values are not something we can use to attain enlightenment or raising our vibration, because they all involve the outer world. They all involve laws and structures. And this is where Sagittarius valuing Capricorn can be faulty, because Sagittarius automatically takes Capricorn and values it. But the sign Aquarius and Pisces are so important to spiritual life. And this is where you have to realize that intellect and emotions are different, because Aquarius is a hippie, spiritual, esoteric sign, but it is too intellectual naturally, to the point where its own willingness to be spiritual gets in its way because they start to create opinions. So when Aquarius can let go of those opinions, it can reach enlightenment and hold it. In esoteric circles, Aquarius is actually the heightened and truest form of spiritual attainment, but also can get lost in the worst, because the mind rules the Aquarius ego, and the mind is the gateway to hell, in the sense that our minds, our judgments, our opinions, our thoughts, our egos, and the fear of them is humanity's undoing. So you may think Pisces is the undoing of humanity. That is not true. What spiritual attainment can find is the balance between signs that are next to each other. So it's the balance between Aries and Taurus, the balance between Gemini and Cancer. So Aries is intuition. Taurus is, and Aries is action. Taurus is being at peace and the Buddha. And going back to Aquarius, Aquarius is the mind. It is researching esoteric knowledge and completely changing your paradigm. That's what Uranus, the sign that rules Aquarius, does. It enlightens us quickly. It opens our minds and changes our paradigm. But then Neptune kills the mind, and it needs to do this because otherwise things would just fall apart.